Hey, it's Tina Brinkley Potts, business strategist, online marketing trainer, and success coach. And I am so excited that you are joining me for this episode of Amplify Your Expertise. This episode is about using email to amplify your reach and your profits. Listen, if you look at any company today, whether it be e-commerce, if they are doing well, they are using email marketing. But what I find when I'm working with a lot of small business owners is that they aren't using it to the best of their abilities, whether it be from low email open rates or no conversions, not really using it consistently. And so I decided to do this episode where I'm actually going to bring back an interview that I did with Adrian Savage. And that interview is important because that was a catalyst for me. I had went through a period of time where I was spammed and hacked and all of that nonsense. And it took a while to get things back. At some point in time, I was actually considering scrapping my domains, but since I've had them for so long, when you think about how ranking and stuff happened on the internet, I decided I was going to keep them and I was going to struggle through bringing it all back. And one thing I can say is that I'm so happy I did. Like, I know that we live in this microwave society and it's like, hey, listen, if it isn't working right now, let's scrap it and get to the next thing. But I like to dig a little deeper than that. And so Adrian and Evan, I actually had a conversation with them and they told me some things that I needed to do, some things that I needed to look for in order to correct what was a phishing kind of thing happening on my email. And so, and if any of you guys are out there that have gone through this, if you are feeling any shame, don't feel shame because the best of us go through it. But I wanted to just bring this up because if you give up, there's something that you can actually miss your gold. Okay. You could miss your gold. So I should have turned off my text messages because they will go off like crazy. But anyway, but I wanted to also do this episode because I want to show you some results. These results aren't to brag. Well, maybe a little bit. But these results are because most people jump from tool to tool to tool to tool and blame the tool on why they aren't getting results. And so these results and screenshots I'm going to show you are from two clients whose email stuff was down in the dumps. One of them is a spiritual coach, and his emails were performing less than 10% when I started back in October. And I recommended some things that was not easy and that he really didn't want to hear. But when I explained to him why he did them. And then I'm going to jump into the episode with Adrian, because after that, I think your ears are going to perk up and you're going to want to hear what Adrian has to say. I do want to say one more caveat that when we recorded that episode, and I didn't want to change it because what he says still holds true today. They do have, one of their brands at the time was Email Deliverability Toolkit or something like that. And I think that link is still live and you still can get it. But they now also are called Email Smart. And so I'm going to dedicate this show to them because I'm very hard-headed, and there were some things that I just did not want to face and wanted to do. One of those, and you'll hear in that episode, is that I believe that if people haven't, or I used to believe, if they weren't opening my emails, as long as they didn't unsubscribe, I'm going to keep them there. But now I know better, and I'm going to show you why. So let's talk about the first one really quickly. And because I'm going to share my screen. And first one, let's jump into, okay, this screenshot. So, okay. So as you can see, the screenshot was taken on April the 5th, and I don't see whether you can see this. I have on my Keep shirt. This is on the Keep Max Classic. And this particular person had been on Keep, left Keep, went to another program, came back. Emails was all over the place. They had a few different people who were helping them, and it was just trying not to cuss. It was just a hodgepodge of the way that they doing things. And so the first thing that I recommended to this person whose email list was about 110,000 at the time, I told him I was getting rid of 40,000 of his emails, his contacts. His jaw hit the floor. Why? Most people, you've been told to build the list, build the list, build the list. And I want to tell you that if you are keeping people on your list who don't need to be there anymore, you're causing yourself more problems. So I started back in October, and I wish I would have taken a screenshot beforehand, but I literally am bringing this all the way from November all the way to April so that you can see what went. He was below 10% email open rate. And when I explained to him why, and when you listen to the later half of the show where you're hearing from Adrian tell you why this works, he's going to go, and he's smart, he's going to talk about the technical stuff, but why what I did worked. So the problem is when you have one person mark you as spam, it literally begins to mess up your placement in the in the email open box, in the email box, right? So by taking out those emails that didn't belong there anymore, and some of them had opted out or didn't know if they were opting out, or like just whatever it was, those emails were causing a problem, so they had to go instantly. If you look over here in November, instantly we shot up to a 15%, where he hadn't had more than 10% for the months before. Instantly shot up to 15% open rate just by getting rid of those. Now, you will also see that there are a lot of emails going out, right? And here's something that I also want you to notice, is that we didn't stop sending emails. In fact, we started sending more. Look here in the week of November the 29th, 1.3 million emails was sent that week, and 1.3 million, 1.299 was sent the week of December 6th. But look, we still are increasing open rate, 17%, 18%. Going to 20. Now, on the week, of course, here's no opens, but yet the open rate shoots up really high because now there's nothing being done to counteract the placement of those emails. So people are still opening those emails, and because people are opening them, now more people are being seen in that email box. This is huge. I know that, especially back in bro marketing, bros started the internet marketing game, and it was like, it was so easy. It was the wild, wild west. Everybody could just throw, and you could just throw emails at people constantly, and it would work. Well, it's a different game today. Like, a lot of times we want to blame the service that we're on, but there's a lot of things that go into it. And if you learn what they are, you can do the same thing that I did here. So as you can see, I more than doubled their email open rate in 5 months. I can tell them what's the best day, right? Like if you're looking, Sundays is the best day that people open. And I can tell them there's just so much data that's here. And most people aren't looking at the data. They're just constantly sending out a lot of emails. Now, there's one thing I want to say about this particular client is he also has other people who work in his account. And those people really kind of like to send emails to everybody. I can tell you that if he were to let me start really segmenting his emails, I could actually even probably double this email performance, because you don't have to send everything to everybody. And when you begin to enhance, which part of it, there are a couple of things that has been implemented, because everybody has their own frequency. And if you really start emailing towards what people actually want, you can do something better. So sales are up for this client. Email opens are up again. Like, man, you're looking out here, you see this 1.1 million emails sent the week of February the 21st, but we're still hovering at a 23.9 email open rate, right? Like, again, they were down under 10% when we first started with them. So I wanted to show you that one. And so then I'm going to stop sharing this one, and then I'm going to move to the next one, to a different client. And so we're going to do, is this the same one? I think it's the same one. Okay. Okay, let me just make sure you can see it. Yes. Okay. Now, this particular client was below 1%. When I first started with them, they had emails, emails of about maybe somewhere in the 18,000 contacts. They were all over the place, though. They weren't all in one system. Part was in Keep, part wasn't. There was just so many things that just wasn't done. They were below a 1% email open rate. And as you can see, as I started, as we're getting things together, we're doing a little bit of emailing, right? You see, we go up to 9,000 the week of November the 22nd. But as you could see in February, we sent out 64,000 emails. You notice it dropped a little bit to 6.3%. But notice they were at 1% when we first started. And at February, we are now at a 12%. And currently they are at a 16% open rate. Now, what is this doing for them? It's helping them sell more tickets to their event. It's helping them get in front of more people. There's a lot of different things that it's doing for them. But you have to have someone who's going to be willing to put in the work. Just to keep scrapping and starting new URLs and going to new systems, that's never going to get you the long-term results. If you're looking to really build your brand, your sales, learn these things that I'm going to teach you. Well, better yet, Adrian's going to teach you on my expense, because I tell you exactly what I wasn't listening to for this. So I just wanted to show you some real world examples. I also wanted to do this because I was at an event the other day, a virtual event, and there were a few people who moved from Keep and went to a different software. I am a partner with a couple of other ones too, like Constant Contact. I use Constant Contact in specific instances, but when it comes to automation, when it comes to bending automation for my will, and helping me create not just sales and marketing, but system and processes that go into fulfillment and all of that kind of stuff, Keep to me still is hands down the best system to do this. And so I wanted to show this because there are a lot of people who constantly complain about, things that they feel that the system should do. I wanted to show how you can build from literally less than a 1% open rate to now being at 15%, and how, even though you have a lot of people who just ride off of different things, oh, it's because of the provider you're on, this, that, and the other, I wanted to show you two different examples of how that's not true. And if you're having problems with your email open rates on Keep, it is not Keep. It is something that you have going on. So if you're blaming Keep, that is your easy way out of not having to do the work. And I'm sorry if that feels a little harsh, but it's the truth. Sometimes you got to be willing to put the work in instead of looking for that easy way out. And so I wanted to share it with this. So again, I want to thank the guys at Email Smart, their new company, Adrian and Evan. And let's now switch to this talk with Evan. Hold on. Let's transition to that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Amplify Your Expertise. I'm Tina Brinkley-Potts. And today I have Adrian Savage with me. So I want to tell you how I met Adrian. As you guys know, I'm now a Keep certified partner, even though I had used Infusionsoft for over 10 years. I wasn't part of the ecosystem. When I joined, I talked to one of Adrian's colleagues, Evan, and I was saying, hey, Evan, I was spammed, some people hacked me, they did all of this stuff, and now I'm trying to get my URL back. I really want to get it clean. I want to be able to market from my previous URL. And so, of course, Evan jumped in headfirst and was doing all the things. And what he did was he introduced me to Adrian. And when I tell you that they have a specific genius about email deliverability, I'm not kidding. These guys, Adrian specifically, have they've spent years upon years mastering this and really know what works now. So I felt it was very important to bring Adrian to the show, because I know a lot of you out there are trying to get paid for your expertise, for your intellectual property. Well, one of those ways is when your email is delivered into the inbox. So let's welcome Adrian to the show. Adrian, thanks for joining me.
Well, thank you so much for the invite. Loving being here.
Awesome. So Adrian, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about email marketing 5 years ago and email marketing now.
Yep. And I think this is the really important thing that some people don't necessarily realize, is just how much it has changed. Because 5 years ago, it was very different to how it is now. And a lot of people talk about it as the good old days, where you could just build the largest email list you could, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, bigger was better. And then you would just mail the hell out of that list until they either buy, they die, or they unsubscribe. And that was the old way of doing it. All we cared, it was all about quantity. It wasn't quality. And it was just the more emails you send, the more sales you're going to make, right? The bigger your email list, the more sales you're going to make. And maybe that worked for some people. But here's the thing, it did start to change a few years ago. And we've reached a point now where we've got these big three giants of email boxes. We've got Google, we've got Microsoft, we've got Yahoo. And between those three, they will typically control maybe as much as 3/4, sometimes even 90% of someone's email list. So that means we've got to really play by their rules, and they have changed those rules. So now they care about things that they didn't care about in the past. And now it is all about quality. It's not about quantity. That's been the biggest shift. And it's really funny looking at how some people just haven't changed their habits. And those are the guys that are still sending out lots of emails, and they've seen their open rate go from 20% to 10% to 5% to 3%. And yet they're still sending the emails the same way. So I guess my job is to just give people a gentle shake, a bit of a wake up call, and say, hey, here's how you can do it. Here's how you can get so much better performance from your email list.
Okay. I'm going to tell on myself a little bit. So the biggest aha I got personally from the work that you guys do was to get people off my list who aren't responding. I had a problem with that in the beginning. I'm going to be honest, Adrian. I'm going to be honest, okay? I was like, if they don't unsubscribe, that's not my issue, because I've had people come back a year later and buy. So why would I push them off of my list?
Yep.
So I'm going to let you answer that question, because it changed me. I'm doing it differently. And I think this is something a lot of people need to hear.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is the biggest change. And it's also the toughest conversation I have with clients. I'm going to very carefully not make any gender biased comments here, but my observation is that it's normally the guys that have a much greater fear of losing their list than the women.
Oh, really?
Which is interesting. But, you know, you said yourself, even you had that little bit of fear. It's like, well, have I really got to let go of all these people that I have invested years of my life and tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of my money attracting them in the first place? And you're telling me that you've got to let them go? Are you mad? And that's kind of the reaction that I get. So I have got quite a job on my hands to explain why this matters so much. So I'll start by sharing a little story, because the first time this happened to me, I was quite shocked, because I use Google for all my email. I've got a personal Gmail account, and I use what's now Google Workplace for my business emails. So I had the Gmail app running on my phone. I opened it, and then at the top, suddenly I saw this message saying, you haven't opened these emails from whoever, John Doe, for the last month or something. Do you want to unsubscribe? And it was like, hang on, so Google's asking me to unsubscribe from something that I haven't been looking at? What's this all about? And that was the proof, if I needed it, to show that even the mailbox providers themselves don't want you to stay subscribed to things that you're not reading. And that was the start of my aha moment. I'll quickly dive down this rabbit hole now because it's relevant, and then get back to the whole thing. But if you think for a moment, the majority of people using email now use a free service. They use Gmail, they use Hotmail, Outlook.com, Yahoo.com, whatever it is. Now, all of those email platforms aren't really free, okay? Because every time you go into them, they're going to start dishing adverts at you. And the only way they make money is if someone opens an email, because it's only when you open and read an email that they can show you an advert. So what that means is that the mailbox providers are starting to favor the people who are getting their emails opened and read. If I'm sending out 1,000 emails and only 10 of them get opened, then I am completely ruining my chances of reaching the inbox in the future, because I'm not helping Google and Microsoft and Yahoo make any advertising revenue. So this is the main reason why they are so intent on getting the engagement and people opening emails as the most important thing. They want as many people as possible to open as many emails as possible so they can make more advertising dollars. That's the bottom line. So what we have to recognize as marketers sending out emails is that we need to bear that in mind. We do not want to send emails to people that are not opening them, because if we do that, then the longer we do it, the more we hurt our reputation, the less likely Google and co are to put our emails into the inbox. And if that happens, then guess what? We won't be seen, we won't be heard. And going back to what you're saying, this is all about sharing expertise. You can't share your expertise if you're not being heard. Everyone wants to be heard. And there's no point sending emails out that are going to go straight to the spam folder. So this is all about how to just do whatever it takes to maximize the chances of avoiding the spam folder, getting into the inbox.
Wow. Okay. So you said, first I want to summarize a little bit about why it was necessary, because it is necessary. And again, I was the biggest person against it. I'm like, like when you've had people come back and buy packages worth thousands of dollars, after they've been on your list for a year and haven't opened anything, you're like, why would I want to do this? So it took a while for me to embrace it. But I can tell you one of the reasons I embraced it was because I was actually doing the second half, getting fabulous open rates, even before I started talking to you guys. So the part where you were just talking about, if people didn't open my emails, I wasn't sending them the second part of that sequence. I only would send it if they opened it. So then that way, my open rate was going higher, because let's say I sent it to 1,000 people, 500 opened. That 500 was getting the next email instead of the 1,000, where most people are still just sending to the 1,000. So I was doing like behavior-based marketing and noticing it was getting me more sales when I was doing it. I didn't realize the benefit because I was getting better position I didn't know that part was happening. That I was getting better position with Google, Yahoo, and who was the other one you said?
Microsoft.
And Microsoft, simply because I wasn't sending to the one who didn't open anymore. I sent to the ones who open when I'm in a sequence. And I realized that, so that was the very thing that made me switch to what you said.
Got it. And I think that's the thing, is that the toughest thing is, like you say, everyone has got a reference saying, yeah, this person didn't open anything, and then suddenly 18 months later, they suddenly woke back up and they bought my $1,000 package, my $5,000 package, whatever. And, let's be really honest here. There is always going to be that outlier somewhere where that kind of thing happens. So it's everything, it's marketing, life, everything is all about balance, is about the trade-off, right? So what we have to look at is, what is the cost of mailing all these people regularly that don't open something, versus what's the benefit of a very small number of people possibly buying something. And depending on how that trade-off works, then there's a line that you've got to draw somewhere. It's like, you probably wouldn't mail someone who hasn't opened anything for the last 10 years, but then you would definitely be mailing someone who's opened something in the last 30 days. So it's working out how that works. But what we have to understand is how the different providers consider engagement to work, because we keep talking about engagement, so let's be clear what that means. So firstly, engagement, and it's very simple, is someone interacting with you, and the only way that we can really measure that, if we're using Keep or whatever other marketing platform we're using, all we can see is whether or not someone has opened an email, whether they've clicked on a link in that email, and apart from that, we're pretty much running blind. So for our purposes, that's what engagement is. Has someone opened our email? And if they have opened the email, then that's great. We want to keep sending something to them. If they haven't engaged, then it's how long do we leave it before we decide to cut them off? Now, the one thing that we know, because other people a lot cleverer than Evan and me have done a lot of research into this, and they're looking at, because thing is, email deliverability is a bit like search engine optimization. You don't know what these big, with SEO, you don't know what Google are up to. You're having to guess, you're having to reverse engineer things. And email is no different to that. We don't know what Google's rules are. We don't know what Microsoft's rules are. But people have done testing. And one of the things that they have established is that Microsoft now treat a contact to be unengaged if they haven't opened something within the last 15 days. Which is insane. Most people only send an email out still to their audience maybe once a month or something like that. So what that means is that it's really, really easy to let people just lose engagement from Microsoft's definition without even realizing. Even Google, I saw that it was about 30 days when I got that notification. So we know that Google will consider someone unengaged after about 30 days, Microsoft 15 days. But here we are sometimes mailing people a year later, and it's working out, well, what does that balance look like? Because I'll explain why this engagement management is so important. Particularly if you're spending a lot of money on advertising, because obviously, let's say you're running Facebook ads, Google ads, and even if you've got free traffic, you've still got to invest time in that as well. Because let's face it, there ain't no such thing as free traffic. There ain't no such thing as free leads. You've got to do something to attract them. So let's say someone signs up for your lead magnet on your email list, and you're going to send them that first email. Now, not everybody is going to see that email, and the ones that see it, not everybody is going to open it. But what we can look at is we'll say, okay, if we look at all the people that have signed up to your email list in the last 30 days, what proportion of those have opened at least one of your emails? And you can see there's a very clear difference between the people that are getting it right, and one of the stats that we measure using the tools that I've got looks at this particular number. And the people doing really well will get something like 80% of all new contacts engaging, opening something in the first 30 days. And then contrast that with the people that aren't necessarily getting such a great job out of it, and they might be getting 30 to 40% of their new contacts opening something. So if I work with a client and they're down the 30 to 40% range when I start working with them, then it's a very easy conversation, because I can say, you're basically burning money here. You could be getting twice as many people engaging with you from the same dollar spend you're putting onto your Facebook ads, your Google ads, whatever, just by cleaning up the way you manage your emails. Because the reason people are getting a 30 to 40% engagement rate is because their reputation is not that good, because they're getting a low open rate. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, they're saying this person hasn't got a great open rate, it can't be great content, therefore we're not going to put all of their emails into the inbox. We'll put some in promotions, we'll put some in spam, and so on and so on. Whereas if you're sending emails out to your engaged people and you're getting a good open rate, then it means that when new people come onto your list, you're more likely to get those emails into the inbox. And that's how you get from that 40% to the 80%. But it means that you really do have to clean up a lot of things sometimes. And I'll work with a client sometimes, and we'll see that they're, a good example is this. Supposing you've got 10,000 people on your mailing list, and sometimes there might be 2,000 or 3,000 of those contacts that have never, ever, ever opened a single email since they signed up. Yet people are still mailing those people. And, Einstein's definition of insanity was doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? Why would you keep mailing someone who has never, ever opened anything from you? And they're the easiest ones to let go of. But then equally, there's the ones that opened something a year ago or 6 months ago or 3 months ago. And it is where do you draw that line? And this is what we spend a lot of time looking at now, is we start to segment our audience according to how recently they opened something. Because what we know is that if you take just the group of people that opened something from you in the last month, you can expect to get somewhere between a 35 and a 50% open rate on your emails. And if you've got that good an open rate, then that is a surefire way of boosting your reputation. And it's what I call the virtuous circle. You've got a high open rate, therefore more people are going to see your emails. And the more people see your emails, then again, more of those open something, and that goes round. So one of the things that I talk about sometimes is, I can double someone's open rate literally overnight. And what we're doing here is we're not actually getting more people to see those emails. What we're doing is we're pretty much gaming the system, and we're using math to help us here. Because let's say you've got 1,000 people in your list and 150 people open those emails when you send them out. That's a 15% open rate. Mm-hmm. So all we got to do is work out which 500 people haven't opened something furthest back, remove them from the mailing list for a bit, and just mail the 500 that have engaged more recently. So if you mail 500 people and 150 open, that's a 30% open rate. Yeah. So we haven't got any more people opening the emails. We've got to be very honest about that. But it's by boosting that open rate, that percentage, that it makes the biggest difference. Because then if you do that consistently for long enough, then all the different mailbox providers out there, they will perceive you as a higher quality sender. And that means that the future people that sign up, your emails won't go into their spam folder, they will go into the inbox. So it's all about looking at how recently people are engaged and just choosing that particular group. Because what we see, I was working with a client this morning, and when they sent to that 30-day group of people, they were getting about a 40% open rate. They then sent to another segment that had opened between 30 and 90 days ago, and they got about a 10% open rate. They then sent something else to the people that opened between 90 days ago and a year ago, and they got about a 2% open rate. So there's still a few people that will open, and some of those might go on to buy something, absolutely. But here's the important thing. If you keep mailing those people where you're getting the 2% open rate on average, you're dragging your reputation down. And by dragging your reputation down, you might be losing the ability to reach as much of 10% of your engaged audience. So then it becomes a trade-off. Do we want to keep getting as many people as we can that have opened recently? Or do we want to try and get those people from a year ago, of which, there will be one in a blue moon, but that's going to stop us from reaching some of our most engaged audience? And that's the type of conversation that I've got to have when we're going back to this kind of the whole fear of loss thing, because it's just using the statistics, using the numbers that I've experienced over the years to say, this is why it's so important. This is how the world has changed. And absolutely, once in a blue moon, it's still okay to mail some of those people. Mm-hmm. But it's all about getting the balance right. In February this year, I did an experiment, and I sent an email to my engaged mailing list every single day through February. And in that time, 75%, just over, more than 75% of that audience opened at least one of those emails. So in less than a month, I was able to reach 3/4 of my mailing list. Wow. So what that proved to me is, if you've got something people want to hear about, and if you're sending to the people that have opened recently, then you cannot send emails too frequently. And that's one of the biggest objections I often hear from people when I say, monthly isn't enough, you need to start mailing weekly. And they'll go, my audience don't want to hear from me. And I'm going to call garbage on that, because
I like your clean word. I was about to say another one. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Starting with a B, right? And that's the thing. There's always something that you can share. I've got some clients where they say, well, my audience buy from me once a year and they don't want to hear from me in between time. And there's got to be some way you can keep in touch, because the thing is, email has changed to the point where consistency matters. You've got to stay in touch with your audience consistently, because if you don't do that, then it means that they're out of the habit of hearing from you, and they're not in the habit of opening and clicking on your emails. Mm-hmm. And worse than that, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, all the others, they're not in the habit of putting your emails into the inbox. The best example of that is people that send out a monthly newsletter, and then suddenly they go into full-on launch mode, and they send 2 emails a day for the next fortnight, next 2 weeks. And if you do that, that's crazy, because the thing that the mailbox providers like more than anything else is consistency. The thing they hate more than anything else is change. So if you suddenly go from 1 email a month to 2 emails per day, guess what? They're going to be very suspicious, and they're going to say, this person's spamming. So you've got to try and keep things as consistent as possible. And if you're going to suddenly go into some kind of launch mode, sending 1 email a month on the build up to that isn't going to cut it. You've got to make sure that you are giving the mailbox providers enough of a time to realize what you're up to. And also, why would you send a full-on launch email to people that haven't read your emails for 3 months? They're disconnected with you. They're not going to have enough of a rapport to even be interested in your offer most of the time.
But that goes back to what was being taught 5 years ago,
yep,
or even 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, right? Like, if we really think about a lot of the systems that are teaching that, there were a lot of guys who had friends with big lists, right? And they all taught this launch method.
Yep.
Right? And so, my gosh, if you're mailing 1 million people and you can't catch 100, 200, 300 people on then there's definitely something wrong, right? So
absolutely.
It seemed like it was a great thing to learn, but what we have found is that whole launch method doesn't necessarily work for the small business owner anyway.
Yep.
An evergreen model or whatever is best. And now I'm kind of understanding some behind the scenes reasons as why. because for instance, just now when you talked about the person who's emailing monthly, and if Microsoft, if after 15 days, there's that disconnect, just by mailing monthly, if you have a lot of people on your list with a Microsoft email, you're screwed.
Yep, absolutely.
So I think that was a great tip for everyone. So Adrian gave you a lot of information, but I want to make sure that that you hear the tangible things you can go implement right now. And the first one is the frequency of your emails should increase. If you're only doing monthly, you really got to get out of that. You got to get to at least weekly. That was the thing that I heard from you. That was number one. The second thing, and now I'm kind of understanding another thing that works for me, is one of the ways I keep my email engagement up high is I deliver a lot of my programs in email and make sure that the people who have purchased go back to that email. Yep. I make so even though I do a lot of video, and yes, they can log into the system and get the video, the email works with the video that's in the system. So they can't have one or the other, they gotta have both. And so when I'm delivering my programs, my open rate is at 90-some%. And that's consistently happening day after day, week after week. So those emails actually, because that is so high, brings up when I'm sending the emails out to the rest of my list.
Yeah.
Which I'm now recognizing that that's what's happening in this conversation. Because I'm very fortunate to have my average email open rate when I'm sending out to just the list is about 49, 53, somewhere in there right now. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. So that shows that you are really looking after your list. So I think this is the thing, increasing the frequency is really important, but you've got to make sure that you're only focusing on the people that have told you they want to hear from you. So, and that goes beyond just only sending to people that have signed up, because that's the kind of common sense bit. But if they haven't opened something in the last 30 days, then don't mail them too frequently. They will still wake up, because as we saw, between 30 and 90 days, you'll still get maybe a 5 or a 10% open rate. But if you're going to mail weekly or 2 times, 3 times a week, whatever it is, make sure the vast majority of those emails you send are only to the people that have engaged in the last 30 days. And then occasionally, let's say for sake of argument, you're sending 2 emails a week to the people that have opened everything recently, and then maybe 1 email every 2 weeks to the people that have opened between, say, 30 days and 90 days ago. So it is kind of 2-tier sending. And then going beyond that, we can start to get really clever, and we can send people maybe a little email giving them a bit of a tickle. So if they haven't opened anything in 30 days, send them a little, here's my best content, here's some freebie for you, whatever it is. And then when they get to 60 or 90 days ago, then maybe a couple of emails to wake them up, but then one final last chance email saying, if you don't click on this link or reply to this email or whatever, then I am going to unsubscribe you. Because at that point, if they've ignored you for the last 90 days, you've probably lost them. There's a few people in there that for some reason, email open tracking isn't always that accurate. So you have to give people a chance there. And that's why it's so important to give people something to click on in every single email you send, because tracking a click is 100% accurate. Tracking an open, sometimes you'll miss people. So always get people to click. But when we get to 90 days, say, hey, it looks like you haven't been receiving my emails. So just let me know you're still there. Click on this link. Otherwise, I'm going to unsubscribe you. And if they ignore that as well, they're out of here. Because at that point they've lost their value. Now you might still use that email address for, say, Facebook retargeting or some other kind of non-email advertising where you can build up a custom audience. But from an email point of view, sometimes it might change depending on your audience. It might be a bit more than 90 days, but that's the typical rule of thumb. If they reach 90 days, they haven't opened anything, then they are probably not going to be worth very much to you. And then some people, they might still send out a little wake-up call every 3 months or 6 months to a small segment of that old list, maybe up to, if it's between, say, 6 months and 12 months ago. But generally, I don't even suggest that most of the time, because by the time you get to that point, if you're getting a 1% response rate, you're doing really well. The main thing is to always focus on those people that have engaged with you most recently.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love that. So I know that we're hitting on about 30 minutes. So I know we gave them a lot of information. What's the first thing that someone should do?
Okay, so first thing is something I'll mention. We haven't covered this at all yet, and I'll mention this in 30 seconds and then leave it. The first thing that is a one-off thing that everybody needs to do is email authentication. Make sure you've set this up, because this is how you demonstrate to the world that every email you're sending is genuine. It's not from some fake person or whatever. So email authentication, really, really important, and you need to do that. There's a couple of acronyms I'll quickly mention, but we'll share resources about how to deal with this. You can share people how they can solve this offline, Tina. So there's DKIM, which signs your emails, and there's SPF that tells the world who you trust to send them. Set that up. It's a one-off thing, and once you've got that, then that increases the chances your email's going into the inbox. And then once you've set your authentication up, then it's about engagement management. Find the people that have opened your emails most recently and give them most of your love. Simple as that.
Absolutely. So let's say those again: DKIM.
Yep.
And SPF.
Yes, those are the two. And if you're not sure, this is one of those cases where I would say, if in doubt, then get an expert to do it for you, because it's one of those, it's a one-off thing. Engagement is different. You must learn that yourself, because that is the most important thing. You've got to live and breathe engagement. Authentication, it's a one-off. So if you don't want to learn how to do it, don't be scared to ask an expert for help, because that's a one-off thing. It doesn't need to cost. It's never going to cost thousands of dollars to fix this. It's worst case, people can do that for a few $100s, and it's worth it if you're not confident yourself.
Yes. And I wouldn't be doing my job as a Keep certified partner if I didn't say that if you have Keep, whichever level, light, pro, max classic, that is one of the very first things that you're going to do in setting up that program, is setting up the DKIM. So I just want to make sure I say that right up front, because I would not be doing my job if I didn't say that. Adrian, listen, I can tell you that you guys have blown my mind, coming back from heavy spammers, hackers, all of that kind of stuff. Like, at some point I wanted to just scrap it all, right? Like, it was like, why am I going to go through all of this? But of course I had 10 years of a lot of stuff that I built on that domain. And so I did the work, and I think that people need to know about what you guys offer. So tell everyone that's watching how they can work with you guys.
Okay, so the first thing I'd recommend is, one thing I've created is a checklist that takes you through the most important things, some of which I've mentioned today, and then the other kind of most important things. So first thing I'd say is download that checklist, because that will take you through the essentials. And to get that, you can just go to deliverabilitydashboard.com/checklist and grab a copy from there. And then if you want to follow up behind that, obviously you sign up, receive an email, you can reply to that email and get in touch with myself, and then I can put people in touch. I mean, Evan does a lot of one-to-one consulting. I've got the software that I've created around deliverability dashboard and the free email health check, and between the two of us, then we'll always refer between ourselves, because Evan, if people want to get right down into the weeds, then Evan is the expert on that, and he has solved problems that I couldn't dream dream of solving. And then if we're getting right into the data, then that's where my software comes into the thing. So this is why Evan and I work so well together. And also, I'd be very remiss if I didn't mention Mark Penny as well. So we've got Evan in Las Vegas, we've got me in the UK, we've got Mark in Australia. So we kind of all the way around the world helping people with this stuff. And and we can always make sure, so there's always someone who's close to you can help, and there's also the different levels of expertise, and we're very good at working together and making sure that the right person helps with the right thing. So always happy to help with any of that. But deliverabilitydashboard.com, go to /checklist is the best place. Just get that checklist, and then obviously you can get in touch through either through the website there's a live chat on there, or you can reply to the email when you sign up.
Awesome. And I also want to mention, so everything that Adrian just said, make sure you go to Deliverability Dashboard and get the checklist, because even if you think you know all of this that we just talked about, you don't know all of this that we just talked about. I learned so many things of why some of the things I do just work. I didn't realize why they worked until I started talking to you guys. I also want to say that I have a course called Emails That Sell. And one of the little tips and strategies that I created in there is how to either move them off your list and get them to unsubscribe, or how to get them to click so that they're back in. One of the things Evan loved about one of the things I was doing is my favorite thing is to have people to reply back to an email. That's my favorite thing to do, because number one, if you're looking for people, remember this statistic, only 3% of buyers are impulse buyers. So what that means is 97% of your audience really needs to be nurtured in order to buy. So if you just start nurturing on a longer term, more frequently, as Adrian was saying, with just the people that are in front of you right now, you will start to convert more sales just from the simple math of it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that knowing who is in that impulse, who's actually in that impulse mode right now. It's typically the person that's taking an action. So if I write an email and I say, reply to this email, what happens is I now see who is ready to respond, who is in that impulse, who is really ready to have this conversation. That changes the game for you. But what I didn't know is that also helps with my email deliverability. And Evan taught me that. So, Adrian, thank you so much for being here.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tina. Really enjoyed it.
This was just fantastic. What is your closing words? What would you like to say to close the show out?
So I think the simple thing is, just if you've got any doubt about this, then first thing is, remember the Disney Frozen movie, let it go. Do not keep trying to send emails to people that don't want to hear from you. They've already voted with their feet. If they started ignoring you, let them go, because there's always a hardcore group of people that love you. Focus on them. They're the ones, that's where you're going to be most successful. Let the rest go and just focus on the important people that are the ones that are still, they've gone through know, like, and trust, and they are consuming everything you send. Focus on them, because that's where, that is the magic part of your audience.
Best words ever. Let it go. Let it go. So again, Adrian, thank you so much for having, and links will be beneath video, beneath audio. You guys, everything that he's talking about, I will make sure the links are there. So thank you so much, Adrian, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Okay, so now you see why I needed you to watch that whole thing, because there's just so much packed in there. How many people that are watching this right now, who can admit you're still sending everybody, whether they're opening or not, you're still sending emails to them. So if they haven't been opening for 6 months and you're still trying to get them to open an email, now do you see what it's actually doing to your reputation with that provider? There's so much in here. Like, you should want to watch this twice. Share it with your friends that have businesses that are emailing, because it's a big deal. So I also wanted to say, across the bottom of the screen, I also made sure that you guys understand that even though Adrian was talking about deliverabilitydashboard.com/checklist, which will be down in the comments, to get that checklist, they have a new brand called Email Smart, and that is at emailsmart.com. So I wanted to make sure that you knew where you could get more of this great information from. As far as I'm concerned, I want to let you know that if you are a coach, consultant, author, anybody that has a thought leadership and want to monetize it, and you're looking for someone who's an expert at getting these things done, who doesn't look at the hardness of it and run away or try to do the easy thing, who's going to put in the work to get you the results, then click the link below and schedule a consultation so that we can talk. Because as you can see, we get real results, as we showed you in the beginning with those screenshots. And you can see it doesn't matter to us whether you're starting from below 1% email open rate or even a 10%, whether you're sending 1,000 emails a month or you're sending 1.3 million, as you saw in the other example. We can help you get to where you want to go. Does anybody do everything perfect? No. Like, there's still a lot of room to grow, even in those examples I gave you. One of those clients, I'm constantly talking about, what are we doing to actually build the list? What are we doing to get more people in? Like, because we are constantly focusing on, engaging with the current list. But again, there's just so much. But you want someone who's going to be willing to do the work and who has a system to get all of the work done. And we really love to support you. So you can complete that link and we will talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us in this episode of Amplify Your Expertise, and I will see you the next time. Bye.